glad we've got this opportunity.
Can you repeat that? You kind of went out for a second there.
Oh, sure. I said I looked up what epigenetics is, and I'm glad I am going to have you to explain it in a way that I can understand, because what I read online was kind of right over my head. So
Yeah.
looking forward to learning tonight.
Well, genetics is pretty much what you're born with, hereditary traits.
Mm-hmm.
And those traits you cannot change. I mean, there's certain things structurally in the body you cannot change. If both of your parents were 5'1", chances are you're not going to be an NBA 7-foot basketball player.
Sure.
If you're born structurally with a half of a heart, half of a lung, you're not really going to change that.
Mm-hmm.
Born with some sort of mutation, you more likely will not be able to change that. That's genetics.
Okay.
Now, there's some people who feel as though that you're born with cancer, or maybe because your parents had cancer, died of cancer, that you're going to die with cancer. That's not necessarily true. And the term epigenetics is a little bit complicated when you look it up. So let me just make it real simple.
Thank you.
We are all a community of bacteria, cells, and viruses.
Oh my.
You're turning me on here. Wow.
When those community of cells, bacteria, and viruses do not communicate, that can cause problems. That will also, how they're composed will determine our DNA. How the DNA expresses itself is epigenetics.
Okay, so if I'm tracking, epigenetics is not changing your DNA, the structure of it, but it is changing how it expresses itself?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That is epigenetic in a nutshell. It is how your DNA, your bodies, your cells express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to change what the good Lord gave you. You cannot change that. But you can certainly change how you manage it. You can change the environment.
Mm-hmm.
That pretty much affects your epigenetics. Now, getting back to our example I made with the 5'1" parents who just produced maybe a 5'2" child.
Yeah.
That person may not become an NBA basketball player, but they can be a good gymnast, a good swimmer, a good wrestler, or whatever the case might be. They just won't be probably an NBA basketball player. So you're not going to change that. So now let's take it a little bit deeper and talk about diseases. Unfortunately, there are some people who can be born with cancer, or who can be born with certain dysfunctions, you might say. Now, sometimes that's related to how the mom or dad took care of themselves, during the conception period there. But most times, diseases are a result of more epigenetic than genetic. In other words, it's how your body and DNA is expressing itself. Now, what affects expression? You should know this. We've talked about this many times. What affects how your body expresses itself, or DNA expresses itself?
Your smack. I don't know. I'm
exactly. Well, that's part of it.
I knew that.
Oh, you're part of it. But once again, we've talked about it all the time. The type of food, the type of activity, the type of exercise, your stress levels is huge.
Oh, wow.
Now, another thing to make it even more deeper is how your body is detoxifying itself. Some people call that methylation, because your body can be very pro-inflammatory if you're not careful. That's kind of the whole thing behind this coronavirus thing. You hear a lot about the cytokine storm, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, that's pretty much inflammation is what that is, and that could be a result of the body being toxic. And when your body is toxic, cytokines will become more prevalent. That leads to more pro-inflammatory environment in the body. When you're pro-inflammatory, that opens up the door for injuries, diseases, setbacks, birth defects. Let's say, a mom is about to have birth, but she is not taking very good care of herself.
Mm-hmm.
That could lead to Down syndrome, the child being born, some sort of birth defect. So there's a lot of things that play into that, because, kids are going to, inherit what their parents have given them.
So, when you talk about disease and epigenetics, one thing I've heard a lot is, someone may be on medicine for diabetes and then they change their lifestyle, and you hear this pretty frequently. Hey, I'm no longer on insulin. Or is that an epigenetic occurrence?
Yeah, absolutely. Because most times diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Now, you can be born a diabetic. Type 1 is different than type 2.
Mm-hmm.
Type 1 is where your body does not make enough insulin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's more of a genetic thing, possibly. That's probably something you can be born with that. Okay.
Okay. Gotcha.
Type 2 is definitely more related to lifestyle, and that's more a result of how your genes are expressing themselves, because type 2 is where insulin becomes too prevalent and it's not doing its job in terms of breaking down glucose and sending it to different tissues of the body. Your liver gets plugged up, your arteries get plugged up. It can lead to diabetes. You start putting on excess body fat. That's more result, yes,
Oh boy.
of lifestyle environments. Would you say there, Paul?
Oh,
you froze for a second.
You for just a split second, you froze up, and I was having flashbacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Anyway, so it's how those genes express themselves that pretty much is a determining factor of type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, heart disease.
Okay.
Yeah, you could be born with a dysfunctional heart. I'm not saying you can't be, but knowing that up front is how that person now manages him or herself. That will determine maybe how long you live, how healthy that heart's beat. Yeah, you kind of froze up there a second too. So modern technology here.
Yes.
So anyway,
Come on, Chris, stop freezing.
you could be born with certain dysfunctions. That is possible, but that doesn't mean that you still can't manage those dysfunctions. It's like a person being born with one arm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's inconvenient as hell, yeah, but there's a lot of one arm and one leg people out there who function very well in society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I wonder, and I don't know if you'll know this or not, but as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking a wonderful way to study this would be if you had identical twins that were maybe separated at birth and grew up with the same DNA, but in different environments, different habits, and seeing how their genes were expressing themselves. Do you know if there have been any studies like that?
I not at the top of my head, but I have heard of studies like that where they have studied twins that have been separated at birth when they're very, very young, and they became one became very, very wealthy, the other one became very, very poor, or one became very, very healthy and fit, the other one didn't keep his health up, or whatever the case might be. That'd be interesting to look it up. I'll maybe do some research on that and determine that. But I would think that, if two twins are separated and one twin, let's say, takes care of him or herself and the other twin does not, you probably see a major difference there. Absolutely.
Yeah. So are there people that just study epigenetics? Like, I am so green when it comes to this. I know you have geneticists, but do you have epigeneticists?
Well, but any person who studies genetics should know about epigenetics. Now, epigenetics is a term that's just come about in the last, probably 10, maybe 15 years, because before, I'll be honest with you, a lot of researchers and scientists thought, and people in the medical field thought, that you were born with a certain thing and that was it. You could not change it. And a lot of medical people believe that if your parents had cancer, chances are you'd have cancer. If your parents were overweight, you'd be overweight. If your parents were had heart disease, you would have heart disease. That's not necessarily the case, as we found out in here 2020. Now, your parents give you a certain blueprint, a certain genetic lottery, so to speak. Now, what you do with it will determine your long-term health. Okay. Once again, I get back to that basketball player who's only 5'1", whose parents were very short. Yeah, you're not going to be an NBA basketball player, but you can be the best 5'1" athlete there is out there who can do certain sports. That doesn't mean that you just sit around and say, oh, woe is me. You know, my parents had cancer, so I'm going to die of cancer. My parents had heart disease, I'm going to have heart disease. That's bunk in my opinion, because I know people that are like that. People in my own family, as a matter of fact, because I've had people in my family that have died of cancer.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
my mom died of cancer, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to die of cancer, because 20 years ago, that was kind of how people thought. In the majority, they thought that, okay, if so and so's parents died of cancer, that your risk is going to be much higher. And there's probably a lot of logic to that, because once again, if you're born with, let's say, weak heart vessels, you can't change that. If you're born, let's say, with, here's another good example, scoliosis, S-curve. You know what that is, don't you?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. You can be born with S-curve, but the majority of people who have S-curve developed it functionally in how they manage their life, how they ambulate, how they sit, sort of activities they're doing. Yes, you can develop an S-curve functionally as well. And when it's functional, you can correct it. When it's structural, the way you're born, you're not going to correct it.
Okay. And that makes actually the distinction between functional and structural actually also helps cement this whole genetics versus epigenetics in my mind. That's good.
Right. So if it's structural, that's more genetic. You're not going to change the structure.
Right.
If it's more epi related, you're not going to change the structure, but you can affect the environment around the structure.
Yeah. Can I ask you a somewhat related question?
Yeah.
Okay. You said there are people in your family that, you know, have diseases that maybe at least partially were because of lifestyle choices. What is it like for them having you in their family? How do you relate to these people when they're dealing with health issues? I would love to be a fly on the wall.
Actually, some of them have called me up and asked me for advice.
Oh.
But, you know, I always tell them, look, I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
I'm just a good old-fashioned health and fitness coach and trainer. But I've done a lot of research and studying in the area, whereas others never invite me over for Thanksgiving. We don't want to hear it, Roberto. We don't want to hear it.
I was wondering if that was the reaction of at least some people in your family.
You know, and look, there are some people in my family that know what I do, and, you know, they know that their lifestyle stinks.
Yeah.
They admit it. Hey, look, Roberto, I don't have your discipline or whatever the case. You know, it's not about being perfect, because all of us are not perfect. You know, I'm a man of faith. We all have sin, right? We're all sinners.
Yep.
But do the best you can do with what you have in the environment that you have it.
Yeah.
And the main thing is trying to eliminate but control as many stresses in your life. And going back to what we talked about before, there's 3 stressors in life, mainly chemical stress, physical stress, and mental/emotional stress. Many of those things you can control. There's certain things like you cannot control. There's certain things like you can control. The things you cannot control, you just got to manage them the best you can.
Yeah.
And the one thing you can't control is your attitude and your perspective. That's the one thing you can control. So, and that's the best you can do, because our bodies can become toxic like that. And when your bodies are not methylating like they should, and look up the term methylation, that will lead to pro-inflammatory. Now, here's one way, before I forget, here's one way you can test in a lab to see if your body is toxic or pro-inflammatory. There's 3 things you can look for. Homocysteine, which is it's like an amino acid, pretty much. If it does not convert to a thing called amino acid called methionine, it can become toxic and very pro-inflammatory. Another one is interleukin 6.
Egads.
Okay, now, if you listen to some of the medical people regarding the coronavirus, many of the doctors are now testing their patients for interleukin 6. Interleukin 6 is a marker for more pro-inflammatory state in the body. And once again, when your body is more inflammatory, as a result of being toxic, as a result of too much stress, it's going to be more susceptible to bacterial and viral infections. Okay?
Interesting.
Another one is C-reactive protein. You can go to the doctor right now and tell them, look, I want to find out what my C-reactive protein is, what my interleukin is, and what my homocysteine is, because those are all very good markers of inflammation in the body. And inflammation is the mother of all diseases.
Yeah, if I've learned nothing from doing this show with you, it is that I am anti-inflammation at this point in my life. Doesn't seem to
What about
be
your smegma?
anything good that comes from it. So
You know what's good for, here's the thing about it. What's good for fighting inflammation outside of the right type of foods and sleep is getting your muscles more leaned up, because muscles make myokines. You know, you've heard of myo means muscle. If you look up the Latin term, myo means muscle. So muscles make myokines. Myokines are like hormones made by your muscles. What's the largest organ of the body? Your muscles and your skin.
Oh, okay. Never
Okay.
mind.
Your muscles and your skin. Okay. So myokines work opposite of cytokine. Cytokines, getting back what I said, what's cytokines? Inflammation, the cytokine storm, right?
Oh, right. Yes.
Okay.
With the COVID stuff. Right.
Yeah, right. So cytokines are more pro-inflammatory. Myokines are more anti-inflammatory. So how do you combat? One way to combat inflammation: get your muscles leaner, get your muscles stronger.
So first of all, I'm glad we're not having a spelling test with this particular episode. Man, these words you're throwing out, holy cow. And then you said to look up methylating, which I thought if you methylated too much, it was bad for your eyesight. Is that?
You just do it until you have to wear glasses.
Okay. I just feel like I methylated a lot more when I was in junior high and high school, but I've kind of toned down a little bit now.
Oh my gosh, Chris.
Sorry. So yeah, I am going to look all of that up, but man, your knowledge is vast, Mr. Roberto. Holy cow. So you want to get your muscles lean.
Mm-hmm.
You want to combat or control all of the stress that you can in your life.
Absolutely.
And I really liked what you said about focusing on those things that we have control over. It kind of reminds me of the serenity prayer that they use in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, exactly. Good prayer.
Yeah, which if I could remember it verbatim, I'd quote it. But basically it's, hey, help me to take control of the stuff I have control, that I can take control of, to let the rest go, and give me the wisdom to know the difference.
God grant me the wisdom to control the things I can. And I forget the rest, but yeah, you pretty much right there.
Yeah, I paraphrased. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a good thought. And it seems to be exactly where we're headed with this discussion, is kind of parsing out what I have control over, what I don't, and then putting your effort and your energy into those things that you do have control over.
Yeah. You know, I hate to say this, but I've heard this too many times. It's a cop-out when I hear people say, well, that runs in my family, so I'm not going to have that great of health. That's bunk, man. I don't agree with that. And, you know, just because somebody in your family died of a heart disease doesn't mean you're going to have it yourself. Well, maybe they weren't taking care of themselves like they should.
Yeah.
You know, for the past probably 50 plus years in our industrial society, Americans' health has deteriorated.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of processed this, processed that, not enough movement activity, not enough steps during the day. We don't get enough sleep like we should because we're on our electronic devices, or, you know, we just up all night doing stuff. And when all that stuff affects your sleep, that's when your body regenerates itself, makes new cells, cell turnover, makes growth hormone. All that stuff plays into how your body is methylating, the methylation process, toxins building up, muscles not repairing themselves, cells not repairing themselves. You start that slow process and the slow decline. Now, when you're younger, you can get away with it a little bit more because when you're younger, see, your cells turn over at a faster rate where you're placing good cells with old cells.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But as you start to age, those good cells don't replace at the same rate. They start slowing down. And those bad cells remain in the body and they become toxic. Okay. And they don't die off as fast as they should. And they become toxic.
Oh.
So that's for example, we don't have the same skin that we had even 3 months ago, because just like a snake, we turn over cells in the skin. The same thing in the gut, we turn over new cells. The epithelial lining of your stomach turns over about every, I'm going to say 5 to 6 months or something like that. But we have new cells, new turnover in the body. But as we age, those cells are not replacing at the same rate they did when you were younger.
And that's why we age?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's why you get wrinkles in the skin. You have issues with your joints because those cells are not clicking. That's the whole thing that's the whole concept behind stem cell therapy is
Mhm.
you can take cells, tissues out of your body when you're very, very young, let's say at age 10 years old,
Uh-huh.
and you can freeze them, put them in cryo reserve for the next 40 years. And when you turn age 50, you could have that stem cell therapy shot back into your body. So now you're getting the growth cells that you had when you were 10 years old, but now you're 50.
Well, and I've even heard that they can do it in older people if they can like get into your spine, I think it is. And
It's your hip
yeah,
pelvis area.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like a bone graft. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I hear
Yeah.
it's painful, but that they can
Painful as
get,
hell. Yeah.
yeah, some of
You
those
can
stem cells
now
out.
you can also do it with the muscle. You do it's like a muscle biopsy. You just dig into the muscle and pull out some growth cells. Let's say you have a bad shoulder, and they can
Mhm.
inject into the shoulder. If you have a bad knee, you can inject into the knee. But as I said, if your parents are smart when they're young, you could have some of those growth cells extracted from the body and bank them and freeze them for the next 30 or 40 years and have it for you. And when you get to be age
Wow.
50 or 60, now you can inject that stuff into your joint. It's going to make you feel like $1,000,000 because you're getting new growth cells.
Yeah. Let me ask you something, because when you talked about people making excuses, I'm going to tell you one area in my life where I've made excuses, and it is dealing with sleep. So I come
Mhm.
from a long line of people that have not been good sleepers. Um, they might nap more than they sleep. Anxiety comes on at night. And so I really, my whole life, have not been a good sleeper. And I've kind of just pushed it off as well. You know, both sides of the family weren't good at sleeping, and now I'm getting older and you just don't sleep as well when you're older. What should I be doing to be a better sleeper, to get better sleep?
Well, melatonin is called the sleep hormone.
Mm-hmm.
You might have your melatonin levels checked. Melatonin is made by the pineal gland in the brain, and also the healthier your gut, the more healthier the melatonin levels are in your body as well, because melatonin is also made in the intestinal lining of your gut.
Yeah.
So you might be having some gut issues. That's one. Now, things you can do in your lifestyle: don't get on the computer late at night. Don't have blue light in your room, such as your electronic devices or TV or anything like that. Don't have don't eat certain foods late at night. That's going to keep you awake, keep you stimulated. Uh, Keep the lights down in your house at night. Don't have full spectrum lights on all over the house,
Mm-hmm.
because what that does, that affects your pineal gland. It's telling your body that it's still daytime. And so what's
Gotcha.
going to happen now, the pineal gland tells your adrenal gland to make more cortisol,
Mm-hmm.
which is really more of a daytime type of hormone to kind of get you awake in the morning, keep you awake and keep you sustained during the day, instead of making melatonin, because cortisol and melatonin are opposite ends of the spectrum. Melatonin is made at night, cortisol is made during the day.
Yeah.
And so if your body thinks that it's daytime, it's going to make more cortisol, okay, even
Okay.
at night.
And
So
cortisol makes you like keep fat around your midsection too, right?
if it's extreme, yes. if it gets too extreme. But you need cortisol also for stress. Cortisol can also help you lean up your body too, if done correctly. When cortisol teams up with, you think about this. When cortisol teams up with insulin,
Mm-hmm.
and insulin also teams up with growth hormone, it can help you immensely. Now, when cortisol only teams up with insulin, it can hurt you immensely. But how do you make more growth hormone in your body? Sleeping at night, getting good sleep, the right type of strength and power type of exercises like weightlifting, body weight training, interval training, your body will produce more growth hormone and testosterone.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's one way. And that's another way, by the way, you can also improve your sleep is by the right types of exercises during the day. Don't exercise late at night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock leaving. I know people who do that. They'll go to the gym at midnight and work out.
Oh, yeah.
I personally wouldn't do that. So, that's another way to do it. But things like that in your life, in order for me to really determine what's going on with you, we'd have to take a deeper dive and look at some lab work on you. And maybe there's some sort of stress in your life that's keeping you up at night. I don't know. It could be something emotional. It could be physical. It could be chemical, like food. It could be, like I said, watching TV in bed before you go to, now reading a really high tech manual before you go to bed, where your brain is racing, maybe reading something that's calming, like poetry, or reading the Bible, or something like that, something that's more calming.
Yeah.
Little stuff like that. Maybe your wife yells at you before you go to bed,
Yeah. It could be the person I'm married to. You're right about that. You know her.
Jane, are you listening?
She's in the other room. Hopefully she didn't hear that. So how does epigenetics fit into what you do in your professional life working with people?
Well, I just help counsel people to have lifestyle changes, where I do a fitness lifestyle assessment analysis on you. We can get into some lab work.
Mm-hmm.
Lab work can get a little bit costly, especially if you don't have insurance, but we can also just do a lifestyle assessment only, where we take a deep dive into how you're sleeping, how you're eating, food cravings, how late you go to bed, what time you get up in the morning, the types of things that stress you out. Are you plant-based? Are you animal-based? How many bowel movements are you having during the day? I mean, yeah, Chris. So all those things are important because, once again, I'm looking at that SMECH, the SMEC, sleep, mood, energy, cravings, and hunger.
Mm-hmm.
All those things will affect, yes, your epigenetic expression. Absolutely.
Wow. And so really, when people come to you, you kind of help parse out here's where you are. Here's our baseline. Here are the things that you can control. And here's what I recommend that you do about that.
Another thing I'm going to find out is, how far are you willing to go with this program? Because I can write up the most beautiful program in the world, but if a person doesn't want to do it or spend the time to commit to it, then we just wasted our time. It's like you telling an architect, okay, Mr. Architect, just design me a home. No details, just design me a home. You don't know what he's going to design.
Right.
But you got to be real specific. I want the door here. I want the windows here. I want the roof shaped this way. I want the kitchen counters designed this way. You got to be really, really, really specific. You got to tell them what you want and tell them what you don't want. When I sit down with a person, they got to tell me, be honest with me. Can you do this? Can you work out 3 days a week? Can you cut your carb levels down to 10% or less? Can you do that? Are you willing to go to the gym? Are you willing to be active every day and maybe walk an hour a day? They might say, no, I'm not doing that. Okay, what can you do? I can work out twice a week. I can cut my carb level down to maybe, I don't know, 100 grams a day.
Yeah.
Okay, we can work with that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if they tell me that I might stick to this for about 2 weeks and I'm done, then we're just wasting our time.
Gotcha. And And in just a minute here, we'll talk to everybody about how they can get in touch with you. I did think of another question on genetics and epigenetics.
Okay.
I don't know a lot about this, but I have seen advertisements, and probably more so recently, about getting certain genetic testing done to
Uh-huh.
see, how likely you are to get what breast cancer or heart disease or whatever. Do you have any thoughts, or have you done any research on genetic testing that people can get?
I've not done a lot of research on that, but I heard that, it is possible. You can determine, the telomere test. You've heard of that, telomeres.
I have not
Okay.
heard of that.
Okay. That's Telemore, I believe it is. It's that's telomeres. It's just telomere. And what that is, those are chromosomes that have become possibly frayed and stretched out.
Uh-huh.
And the more condensed those telomeres are, chances are you're going to live longer.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Whereas if those telomeres are frayed, like a frayed rope or a cord, chances are you're not going to live as long. And chances are you've probably got some health issues going on too, because there's somewhere in your life, there's a lot of stress. So yes, the telomere test, you can, your listeners can look that up. The telomere test is probably one of the best things you can do to determine long-term health and longevity.
Wow. Telomeres. You know what I think we better do before we tell people how to get in touch with you? You have thrown out so many big words this time. Maybe we could just do a quick run through of the things that you mentioned. So people remember it. So there's the one thing.
Cytokine storm.
Cytokine storm. Okay.
Now you hear that a lot related to the COVID-19.
Right.
That's pretty much, that's inflammation. Myokines, that's where you build up more muscle tissue, good lean muscle. Myokines are produced by muscles. They're more anti-inflammatory. Cytokines are more pro-inflammatory.
Okay. Myokines, good. Cytokines, not so good.
Okay, not so good. Cytokines can be good, just like cortisol can be good. But if cortisol is too prevalent, it's bad.
Yeah.
If it's not prevalent at all, it's bad.
Okay.
You got to have that right balance. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay. What was the other one? Telomeres. We just talked about that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the methylation.
Okay. That's pretty much how your body is detoxing itself. Now, if you look up the term methylation, it's going to give you a lot of scientific stuff, like relating to mutations of the body. But just to make it simple for people watching this and listening, maybe, it's pretty much how your body is detoxing. That's what it is. Now, the way to determine that is by testing for certain compounds like homocysteine.
What'd you call me?
Yeah. Homocysteine.
Come on.
Which is like an amino acid. You can also test for C-reactive protein and interleukin 6.
Whoa.
Okay. All three of those are related to inflammation in the body.
Wow. Okay.
If those are elevated, chances are you've got a lot of issues in your body, in your health. And if you don't, wait around, it's coming.
Gotcha. Hey, as always, Roberto, this has been absolutely fascinating. This, maybe more so than others, has just opened my eyes to just how deep your knowledge goes and how much research you've done in educating yourself around all of this. If somebody wants to take advantage of that knowledge, if somebody wants to work with you to, improve their epigenetics and take more control over their lifestyle and getting themselves more healthy, what do they do?
Call me, 816-405-7703. Email is rwpsports@yahoo.com. You can also reach me via Facebook. I have a Facebook forum called the Innovative Sports Training, Health, and Fitness Forum. You can also join that if you go to Facebook.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm a member of that. You post pretty frequently on there, and there's some pretty interesting, helpful stuff. So certainly I would say do that. And that would also give people a little bit of a taste of you, what you know, stuff beyond what we cover in the podcast here. So that would
I just posted a video last night. It's called 3 Solid Ways to Rid Yourself of Excited. I urge everybody to watch that.
Okay. Hey, I'll give it a
Okay.
watch tonight. And if
Okay.
not tonight, tomorrow while I'm working. So
Not too late though, Chris. Not too late.
no, that's the problem. You know, it's almost 8 o'clock. I got to get up early because I've got a workout class at 6 in the morning.
That's right, buddy.
Yes. Well, hey, thank you. Give him your phone number one more time.
816-405-7703. Email is rwpsports@yahoo.com. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey,
Thank you.
you bet. Thanks, Roberto. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. We're going to get back on our regular schedule here.
All right. Take care. God bless, guys.
All
Bye-bye.
right. You too. Night.
Thanks for listening to the Health
Bye,
Detective
Roberto.
Podcast with Roberto Parker. You can contact Roberto
Hey, Roberto doesn't stick around.
405-7703 or by email at rwpsports@yahoo.com with any comment or question you may have. Join us next time for the Health Detective Podcast with Roberto Parker. The Health Detective Podcast with Roberto Parker has been a KCTK production, produced by Roberto Parker, Chris Whiting, and Paul Lavoda. All rights reserved. For more information and content, email us at kctkradio@gmail.com.
Hey, thanks, man. Paul.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
All right. Talk to you later, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.